Welcome to the David Pakman Show. Very, very big show today. I want to get right into it. I don't want to miss a second of time to tell you about some of the different things that are going on. You know, we've had a lot of discussion lately about the legality and the morality of the various surveillance programs, including the NSA, some of which individuals learned about through Edward Snowden's releases, some of which people kind of already assumed were going on, but received confirmation of from Edward Snowden. But there's another aspect of the surveillance story that has been getting less attention lately, although in the last week or 10 days, Lewis, it's gotten more and more attention, which is people are starting to realize that regardless of whether you think that the mass surveillance going on is legal, and regardless of whether you think that it is moral or ethical, that it is not particularly effective. And there's a number of quotes that I'll talk to you about. Now, one individual we know on this program because he's been on the show before is Richard Clarke. He's the former terrorism advisor to President Clinton as well as President George W. Bush. He said, the argument that this sweeping search must be kept secret from the terrorists is laughable. Terrorists already assumed this sort of thing is being done. Only law-abiding American citizens were blissfully ignorant of what their government was doing. If the government wanted a particular set of records, it could tell the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court why, and then be granted permission to access those records directly. The phone companies would not have to know what data was being accessed. There are no technical disadvantages to doing it that way, although it might be more expensive. Now, some people believe that Richard Clarke's opinion has become in some way tainted or that Clarke himself is biased, but there's a long list of other people is the reality. William Binney, the head of NSA's digital communications program, says he set up the NSA system so all the information would be automatically encrypted so the government would need a search warrant. However, NSA is now collecting all the data in an unencrypted form, and here's the key from what Binney says. Massive surveillance doesn't work to make us safer. The government is using information gained through mass surveillance in order to go after anyone they take a dislike to. And then lastly, we have Israeli-American terrorism expert Barry Rubens, and he points out, in counter-terrorist terms, it is a farce. A farce, that is. Basically, the NSA, as one of my readers suggested, is the digital equivalent of strip searching, the TSA strip searching an 80-year-old Minnesota grandmother rather than focusing on the likely terrorists. Do you think that maybe this is a more effective discussion to have, Lewis, of whether this type of surveillance is even effective? Does that potentially diffuse the discussion about this at a much higher level than before we get into the logistics and legalities?
Yeah, I think it's basically futile to discuss the legality of this type of thing. That just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the government does whatever it wants. But if we can prove that it's just not effective, maybe the government will stop wasting so much money on this, and maybe we won't be stripped of our rights. I would compare this to the war on drugs. I think it's a similar thing, dumping insane amounts of money into this for little to no reward.
It's a distinction between the legality and the morality of it to the efficiency and effectiveness of it. And I think it's a good conversation to have.